What's that, Timmy? Solo isn't doing so well at the box office. I'm shocked. Of course it's not doing well. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? You have some no-name actor named Alden Ehrenreich who can't even pretend to be Han Solo. You tried to court current nerds by bringing in Emilia Clarke, Daenerys Targaryen, to be the love interest. You had a last-second edition of The Vision, as I understand it. You have Disney completely hating the original cut of the film, firing the two existing directors. You brought in Ron fucking Howard to finish chopping this film, and then the final cut was what we got. What did you guys expect? What was the fucking... no shit, duh. Fucking duh. All of those things, throw them into a cauldron, and you're going to get a fucking recipe for a nuclear disaster. That's what this movie was. It was a hot fucking mess. It wasn't the worst movie. It actually, considering those things, turned out to be viewable. It's a viewable film. If that's, it's enough for you. It's a viewable film, I'll say that. So I saw this article over on theforce.net, and I thought I'd share that with you guys today, do an old school riff off of an article, if you remember back when I did that. I was doing it before you, Ethan Van Sciver. Okay, so here's the article in question. Solo drops off 65%. Yeah, again, this is going to be the second weekend sales for the box office. I'm not surprised. Are you surprised? Why are you surprised? So the article begins. I was really hoping to not have to write this post after the second weekend of Solo, a Star Wars story, in theaters, but here we are. Solo followed up its lackluster opening with an even weaker second weekend total that dropped 65%. Yeah, good. Fucking good. We'll elaborate more on that in a bit, but fucking good. What is all this? Stop with this fucking cancer. I question people who collect this. Anyway, from CNN, Han Solo is still not a box office force. The second weekend of Solo, a Star Wars story, which tells the story of a rebellious pilot's youth, made an estimated $29.3 million in North America, according to the studio. That's a drop of roughly 65% from its first weekend's three-day total of $84.4 million. Still a decent amount, but, I mean, it's a Star Wars movie. This should have been way fucking higher. $264 million globally. I mean, still, by most measures, that's a good showing. It's just piss poor for Star Wars. Solo's drop this weekend is a major concern since there was virtually no big competition. Yeah, how about that? How about you fucking tried a Star Wars movie during a block where typically Memorial Day has been a shit show, and you still couldn't do it. You still couldn't fucking pull it through. The film's journey forward at the box office is only going to get more difficult with a big June on the horizon. The next 3 weekends include the debuts of Ocean's 8. I didn't even know they were doing another Ocean's movie. What the fuck? Incredibles 2, I'm excited for that. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, I'll go see it, but I just don't care. I think Colin Trevorrow is, perfectly suited to do Episode 9 because he's another ho-hum fucking paint-by-numbers director. But we'll probably talk more about that later. The article continues. Jeff Bach, senior box office analyst at Exhibitor Relations, told CNN Money earlier this week that he thinks it'll be difficult for the film to break even with its production costs, which reportedly total $250 million, not including marketing and distribution. And I gotta wonder, how much of this is re-edits and hiring acting coaches and fucking dicing up this film in the Frankenstein lab that they did. I wonder if that's why this is even so high. Guys, we've proven you don't need this number to make Star Wars. You don't. You don't need that number to make Star Wars. Star Wars was a fucking low-budget sci-fi film, that they kit-bashed literally together from prior component, from model kits, from fucking sets that they borrowed. Maybe the trip to Tunisia was the most expensive thing that they had to do, but you know, visiting the redwoods of California, that wasn't, you know, probably too taxing for them. Regardless, you didn't even need this number to make this kind of a movie success. I would have preferred the film be more grungy and ground level anyway. We'll talk more about that in a bit, though. We'll continue. While its box office haul is by no means meager, it's a disappointing performance for an installment in one of America's best-loved franchises. Yes, as I said. Bach expects Solo to earn less than $450 million during its entire run in theaters. By comparison, the last 2 Star Wars releases raked in more than $1 billion each. This isn't even going to total half of one of those films. You know, there's some factors that are in play because of that, which we'll cover, but, you know, this is pretty telling. Some attribute the film's sluggish performance to Star Wars fatigue. That is one component, yes. Lucasfilm, which is owned by Disney, released Solo just 5 months after the debut of The Last Jedi. Bach has another theory. Prequels starring established characters usually lack drama because fans know they aren't in much danger, he points out. Oh, okay, fair, but also untrue. Because let's do the time walk here. Let's go back. We'll talk about something called Shadows of the Empire. We'll look at something called even the prequels. You know, any of those things. Shadows of the Empire was, in my opinion, one of the coolest Star Wars things that we got, right? It was new, it was old because it was existing characters, and it came out after Return of the Jedi. We knew what was going to happen to these characters, right? We knew that Luke was going to be okay, we knew Han was that he would get rescued, and we knew that Leia would be fine. But that didn't matter. That didn't matter because we were interested to know what happened. We were genuinely interested to know what went on between the years of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. You know, how did Leia acquire the Boushh? Some people say Boushh, I say Boushh. Costume. How, you know, become that kind of bounty hunter persona. What happened with Luke? How did he keep developing his skills? And then they introduced some throwaway characters like Dash Rendar and Prince Shizor, you know, in the Black Sun Cartel and all that stuff. But it was a really compelling story. Steve Perry did an awesome job with that book. I was enthralled when I read that book back in the 90s. So that kind of, in my opinion, disproves this. I think fans are more than willing to suspend the knowledge of what ultimately happens with characters and can embrace prequels if you do it well. If you're telling a story that isn't just, will they survive? Like, you can't do the fucking radio show where we don't know what's going to happen to our heroes because clearly we know what's going to happen to them. What you have to do is create tertiary drama and world building around that to interest us. Maybe make some new characters, and then if they're successful later on, post whatever movies you've established, we go, hey, what happened to those people? And that has created new interest. So I don't think that you can just say that is one of the reasons why this movie didn't so well. I mean, you're half right. I'll give it to you, but I think that's not necessarily true. Okay, so up here where he says, or some attribute I don't know who some is, but attribute the film's sluggish performance to Star Wars fatigue. Yes, this is one of the chiefest concerns I had, knowing that Disney was going to be cranking these things out on a fucking assembly line like they've been doing. I knew Star Wars fatigue would be a thing. I think, and this is the larger point I wanted to make with the video, or discussion I wanted to have, just something I've been mulling over. After I was listening to the Knockback podcast from Colin Moriarty, and one of his recent episodes was about the expanded universe for Star Wars. And the whole time I'm just listening to that, I'm geeking out because, yeah, that I felt a lot of the same ways that he felt about the original EU. The original EU was so fucking good. And yes, it also had terrible shit. Like once it got to the Solo twins and Lobaka and the Black Fleet Crisis and the Yuzong Vong and all that stuff, that's when it started kind of going off the rails. But the Thrawn trilogy, the Corellia trilogy, the fucking I, Jedi, Splinter of the Mind's Eye, the original fucking fan fiction for Star Wars, the original Solo trilogy, the Lando trilogy, all that stuff. We had great fucking material that held us over between the end of Return of the Jedi and Episode 1. Here is where I'm going with fatigue here. What happened was people had this complete barren landscape of official Star Wars material, in a sense. They didn't have movies being cranked out. They didn't do cartoon shows after the original animated thing that they did during the Christmas special, and then they had fucking droids. That was a brief stint, but largely they didn't have anything to sustain it in the way that corporate minds functioned in the 80s. For example, how can we sell toys of this thing if there's nothing out right now? There's no movie, there's no show, there's no video game, there's no media to consume to make these things sell. Well, with Star Wars, you didn't necessarily need to have that, because the galaxy that was created, the universe, the mythos that was created in that first trilogy was so compelling, and it offered such a small glimpse into the storytelling that we got, that fans could take it and make whatever they wanted. They could go in all these crazy directions. Lucasfilm became this kind of wizened overseer of the franchise, and it issued the books and the role-playing games, the video games, the comic books. We had tons of this kind of smaller media to go off of to support this franchise. And that built up a lot of excitement, because there were so many different things that you could pick and choose in the universe to like, right? Me, I tended to prefer more of the ground level stuff. I liked when it was troopers versus the rebels, ships, mechs, that kind of deal. Fucking AT-ATs, maybe not mechs, but you know what I mean. AT-ATs, AT-STs, ships, walkers, that kind of thing. Military. That stuff was the most intriguing to me. And then you would add in a dash of smuggling and, the World War II element that Star Wars was inspired by. Or parts of it anyway. That stuff for me was the bee's knees. And then you would just have, just a touch of the Force here. And, it was such a deft stroke whenever the Force was used. And when it was used, it was special. It wasn't just everyone running around with lightsabers and fucking, look how crazy we are. That's when Episode 1, it was just so shark jumping, because everyone was using the Force, and it was just it was a visual overload. I liked that it made sense for the setting that it was in. It's literally, prior to the Emperor becoming what he was, and I get it. I get it. But I liked when the Force was used a little bit more sparingly, and it was a little bit more special. So, franchise fatigue we didn't have, because, you weren't cranking out all these films, but also I personally didn't feel it. I didn't feel like I was missing Star Wars, if that makes any sense. I didn't feel like I wasn't getting any Star Wars for this. I felt like I was perfectly capable of finding my own fun in Star Wars, because there was so much stuff to do. You had the comics, you had, again, the role-playing game, which I played, you had some tabletop stuff. Other than that, more of that has come recently, which has been great. Like Legion's fantastic, but so you had, anyway, you get my point. There were things that were keeping the franchise alive, and now Disney comes along and says, we're going to be doing a film almost once every year. We're going to do anthology films exploring the characters you loved. You just knew that this is what was going to happen. I think when you say that is, you're not explaining enough of the reasons why this movie failed. Again, all the background stuff, reshoots, bad acting, fucking the script, apparently Disney didn't like at first, and then they made this one, which was just a passable script. I can only imagine how bad the first one was. or how good it must have been knowing Disney, as I've said previously in other videos. But another factor that they're just not considering here, there is a large portion of the Star Wars fandom that is sick and tired of Kathleen Kennedy and these fucking clown shoes social justice warriors putting their personal politics into this thing, diluting it. You know, they're adding oil to the water. And that to me is when you start committing seppuku. When you're turning it into this sort of sounding board for your own politics, you are going to create divisiveness in the community. There's a video I've been wanting to make about the Magic the Gathering community. I'm sure some of you who watch this probably play Magic. You know about what goes on with like MTGHQ, the Quartering, Ensleeve Media, as he's now known. The Warhammer stuff, fucking Thundercats looking as unmasculine as it possibly can. This stuff, this pervasive dumbing down and feminizing of traditionally male properties is causing a lot of this backlash. For me personally, I have always said, and I will say this till the day I fucking die, I don't give a shit about the genders and all that shit. I don't care about that shit in the movie. I don't care. If the characters are good, I will watch it. I will like them. I will buy the fucking toys. If they're good. But if they're stupid, if they're fucking Rey or Rose Tico or that fucking Emphas Nest from fucking Solo, no. Then I don't give a shit. Or whoever the black chick was that died at the fucking beginning, then I don't care. You're just creating fodder for your political views. It seeps into this media and causes these kinds of problems. So you can throw this onto the pile of reasons why Solo failed. And again, failed is somewhat subjective. It did okay. But again, for Star Wars, for people like me, this was a prediction come true. You know, this was absolutely verification for what we knew was going to happen with this property once Disney started. After The Last Jedi, though, we'll say that, in fairness. Though, I'll say again, The Force Awakens was so repetitive. It was just a retread of the first it was a retread of New Hope. Not a whole lot of original ideas going on there. It was just retelling a new story with younger casts so that Disney has more opportunity to cash in on them. It's fucking dumb. And now you have Solo. And now we're going to be getting a Boba Fett movie. And potentially an Obi-Wan movie. I'm going to do a video next about the Boba Fett movie, my feelings about that, about Boba Fett in general, and about doing a movie about him, and why I think it's stupid, and why I just don't think it's a good idea. I could be proven wrong, then they could do it well, but there's only a few ways that I can see that happening, and I'll cover that later. But yeah, guys, that was it. I just wanted to share that article with you just so we can have a good laugh at fucking Disney's expense and say, haha, we told you so. No shit, this movie didn't do well. I will say, I'll proffer some constructive criticism here. The way you could have done this better and made it interesting would have been to hire Steve Perry or Timothy Zahn to do this treatment for this film. I don't know how well they can do screenplays, but they could have done treatments for it, and they know Han a hell of a lot better than Kasdan's son does. I mean, maybe, Lawrence Kasdan, yeah, he has some clout, but again, not much. I mean, that dude's fucking old now. Like, I'm sure that he's just going to be throwing stuff out there for the fucking almighty dollar. I really doubt that because of what we're looking at here, there's not a whole lot of artistic integrity. Alright guys, that's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to vent some frustration there and also share a good laugh with you about this because it was funny. So we'll catch up with you next time, guys. Thanks for watching the video. I have a bunch of other videos on here, a bunch, that you can check out. I'm going to be doing more content, getting, the ball rolling on this and starting to make a fucking channel here. So thanks for sticking around, and thanks for commenting in the comments below. If I don't get a chance to respond and stuff, I'm just really hectic with real life bullshit, and sometimes I don't have a chance to, but usually if it's a good comment, I'm liking it, and all that kind of stuff. So, alright, I'll see you guys later. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Share the video, blah, blah, blah. You get the deal. Peace.